Sorry, George. Bye-bye.
The weather is starting to cool down and the breeze is blowing, just like the Clippers blowing a 3-1 lead. But seriously, these NBA playoffs have been really nothing but spectacular. So, hello everyone, welcome inside the Sergeant's Lab. I'm Matthew George, alongside with my co-host, good friend, and a graduate of the University of Rochester, John McConjay. How are you doing today, brother?
Doing great, man. I mean, I came back from vacation up in New England. You know, it was a great getaway. You know, even though it's only the weekend, get to get away for a couple of days. Yeah, I'm back, ready for another episode.
Yeah, for sure. And with another episode here in episode 9, I mean, we're talking about, first of all, the semifinal rounds and the current conference finals in the NBA. So make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe to the Sergeant's Lab, and make sure to comment. Again, who is your 2020 NBA champion for this year? So we got a lot to talk about. Let's first off go off in a tangent with the semifinal round. So we're gonna go with the Western Conference first, and then to the Eastern Conference first. The big take of it so far has been the Los Angeles Clippers blowing, as I mentioned before, blowing that 3-1 lead that they had against the Denver Nuggets. I want to get your first take on the first thoughts on it, John. What was going on with that series? Like, seriously.
Oh man, it's just like, it's a lot to unpack. But I guess, like, in terms of what was going on, like, I think it's just, so let's just do this in chronological order, right? So game one, I'm not even gonna count game one because, again, like, you guys already know my whole spiel that I don't like how the NBA's been scheduling the playoff days where they've been basically playing like every other day, or they don't have as much time in between series. So game one, I knew the Clippers were gonna win. I'm not gonna count game one. Game two, I think, was, you know, an indication of what the Nuggets could do throughout the rest of the series, which they ended up doing, which is where they got to a hot start, you know, with Jamal Murray and Jokic, and everyone else was contributing around them and hitting shots, and they punched the Clippers in the mouth early. You knew the Clippers were going to make a run because that's what happened. I believe the Clippers made a really late run. They cut it to single digits late in the game, but the Nuggets were able to cut the deficit. And then, win the game. And then the Clippers came out energized. You know, they really enforced their will, especially on the defensive end. I think that's part of the reason why you know, the Clippers ended up losing the series, because their defense wasn't as energetic as it was in games 3 and 4. Especially in the second half of games 3 and 4, they really locked down the defense and were forcing the Nuggets into a lot of tough shots. But then in games 5 through 7, those tough shots suddenly became extremely easy shots for the Nuggets. And also, when you factor in that, obviously, you know, Kawhi, he didn't play well. We all know about way off P and all that stuff. But also, like, for the Nuggets, you know, you gotta give them credit. You know, like, Jamal Murray, like, we all thought that his series against the Jazz was a fluke, but, you know, he did an excellent job of you know, being as consistent as he could. You know, hitting tough jumpers. You know, he's really good at getting to the paint. And then you have Jokic, like, I don't know. I still don't think that Jokic is the best center in the game. In my opinion, I still think it's Joel Embiid, but Jokic has really, you know, opened a lot of people's eyes and shown that he's definitely going to be one of the best players of this next decade.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think that if you take a look at what happened in Game 7, like, he was dishing it everywhere. 13 to 6, and to go along with that, he had a triple-double with 22 points. No one, I don't think, if I'm recollect correct, if my service correct me, but like, I think he's the first player in NBA history to record a triple double with over 20 plus rebounds, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure though. But if that's the case, then like especially in the playoffs, like, that's insane. First off, and to me, in my opinion, Jokic is definitely the best center in the league in terms of passing. Like, no one in the league can pass has the offensive IQ and the passing IQ that Jokic does, and he only takes shots that he really necessarily needs to. The same thing like LeBron James. However, you know, Jokic is in the center position. So with that being in mind, you know, I want to figure out what does Jokic bring to this team, because a lot of times, like, saying, oh, he's like he's very he's the way he's agile, his way is like so agile, and the way he moves his body is kind of like some say it's awkward, sometimes it's like really like stiff, but then again he still gets the job done.
Well, that's a good point you bring up, Matt. You know, you bring up his agility because his weight loss has really helped him out, especially during this year's playoffs. Because big criticism of Jokic has been his weight. You know, like he's not like an overweight guy, but he's overweight, I guess, in terms of the NBA. And you know, he came into this season kind of the same way. You know, he didn't. I mean, I guess he didn't look he lost that much weight. You know, this 4-month layoff really benefited him because you saw how skinny he was coming into the bubble, and that helped him out because now he's quicker, and because he's quicker, he can play more minutes. Because that was another issue in last year's playoffs was that Jokic played a lot of minutes and he got tired. This year, he looks much better. He doesn't look as tired at the end of games as he did in last year's playoffs. And also, Jokic is, you know, you brought up his IQ. He knows how to use his size to his advantage. You know, he knows that he's a center and that he can see over the top of the entire defense like a LeBron James. You know, LeBron is a center. You know, Jokic, you know, he said he has a really high IQ because he can see over the defense. He's really good, you know, at dishing it out, finding the open shooter on the perimeter, you know, or I remember in my Denver Nuggets video that I did way back, I think in this past series against the Clippers, that you know Jamal Murray and Jokic, they were doing a good job with their pick and roll in the half court. So yeah, I think just you know Jokic, you can see over the top with defense, he's a really good passer.
Yeah, for sure. And and speaking of that video, make sure to check out John's YouTube channel, aka youtube.com/DATAMIKE for his videos as well, especially with the Raptors video that has been popping up very recently and has over 1.6k views, which is very humbling to see. So, you know, now with let's go with the next series. We'll move it right along with the Lakers and Rockets. And I mean, you know that the Lakers were going to take care of business with the Rockets, even though they were trying to come with the game plan of we're still running that 5 out with the Rockets, but trying to play that against one of the best defensive teams in the league. I mean, I don't think there was any way of defeating that because, yeah, I think the Rockets gave them some trouble, but it wasn't that much to continue to finish out that series.
Yeah, but well, I want to do a different take. I guess in terms of like the Lakers, in my opinion, like I don't know about you, Matt, but in my opinion, the Lakers have been getting disrespected pretty much all season long.
How so?
And basically, if you think about it, right, the Clippers were one of the heavy prohibitive favorites to win the title this year. Like a bunch of TV analysts had the Clippers win it all. You know, they were hyping up the Clippers, you know, as the Clippers kind of take over Los Angeles. And, you know, we remember that opening, that season opener when the Clippers, you know, they kind of bullied the Lakers in that opening game way back in October. And now even coming into the bubble, you know, the Clippers, they were still one of the prohibitive favorites to win the title. And even going away from the Clippers, it's all about the first round when they played the Blazers, right? I'm not going to name names, but we had certain people saying that the Blazers were going to beat the Lakers. The 8th-seeded Blazers were going to beat the Lakers, who were the top team in the West.
I mean, eight seeds defeating 1 seed has happened before, but it's very, very rare.
I know, but I'm just saying, when you're talking about LeBron, I don't think LeBron, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think LeBron has never been knocked out of the first round of playoffs. Like he's never lost a first round playoff series. So just the fact that this is LeBron, you already knew the Lakers were going to win. And even in this series against the Rockets won game 1, and they could have won game 2 if the Lakers didn't make that huge comeback, and they ended up winning 4 straight. I think, you know, like I said in my other video about the Lakers as well, how they're unstoppable. I think, like, yes, like, you know, the Rockets, they were really disappointing, you know, this year, and especially with how they performed in the playoffs. But I think, you know, we should give the Lakers credit. You know, they've been the best team They've been one of the best teams in the NBA all season long. And yeah, they struggled in the second round of the bubble, but they turned it on against the Blazers. They won 4 straight after losing game one. Same thing this series. They lost game one against the Rockets. The Rockets only had 1 day of rest after game 7 with the Thunder. They turned it on. They won 4 straight, and they basically mollywopped them in 2 of the 4 games. I think it was in game 3 and then in game 5. They absolutely destroyed them. So I think, we usually give the Lakers credit rather than, say how disappointed the Rockets are.
Yeah, obviously, and then now obviously with your video as well with the Rockets, they do have to make some adjustments if they want to actually, continue to make that playoff push, but still try to even make a championship run, because from the looks of it, it doesn't really look too good. So let's move on right into the Eastern Conference before we head to the conference finals and the Bucks versus the Heat, because, well, what a big take it was. What a series it's been, and now the reigning MVP and the MVP for this season of Giannis Antetokounmpo got knocked out, and it's very surprising to see that. But the way that the Miami Heat had their defensive prowess and their defensive sets for defending Giannis really worked well to their advantage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, first I want to say congratulations to Giannis, for winning MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. I had Anthony Davis win Defensive Player of the Year just because I thought that the NBA would spread out the awards more, because you rarely see a year where you have the same player winning multiple awards. So congratulations to him. But in terms of the Heat's game plan, we're going to talk about it when we talk about this their series with the Celtics. The Heat are, they're going back to the basics. There's their game plan, playing old school zone, okay, here's the thing. Like, for those who may not know, and I say it I think I said it in my Rockets Thunder video, like way back in the first round. Like, in the NBA, you can't play a strict zone. Like, I'm talking about like high school and college strict 2-3, 3-2, like, and for those who may be Syracuse Orange fans, like, Jim Boeheim, he likes to run zone defense. You can't do that in the NBA. That's illegal. So you have to, like, the Heat and obviously the Celtics too, we'll talk about them later, they're running kind of like a matchup zone where, it's like they kind of got that 1-3-1, 2-1-2, they're mixing up the zones to throw off the Bucks and throwing different looks at them. So that way that they kind of throw off their game. Because the Bucks, they're really good. They're not a good half-court team. Especially they're not a good half-court team, and it's really been exposed in the playoffs the past 2 years. Last year with the Raptors threw the wall at Giannis, and now you see more teams are starting to do it. Obviously, like, it's not going to really work against a bad team like the Magic did in the first round, but when you feel a good team like Heat, or they're a defensive-minded team, it just goes to show that, and you got to ask, Giannis, like, he's the reigning back-to-back MVPs, but, at a certain point, we got to ask ourselves this question, like, if he can't beat a simple defense like a wall, then can we really call him, the best player in the NBA? If he doesn't, we'll see how it goes for next season. I think next season is going to come out extremely motivated, not only because his contract's up, but, people have all these questions and criticism about him. So it'll be interesting to see. But obviously, credits to Miami Heat for knocking off the 1-seeded Bucks.
Yeah, for sure. And, you wonder about his future with the team as well. But we'll get into that a little later in this epi. So, now that Miami has taken the series, and now with obviously facing the Celtics, let's move it right on to the Celtics and the Raptors, because I mean, we all knew that it's going to be tough for the reigning champions and the Raptors to actually get back into the final systems, with the amount of like criticism that they have received for this coming season, saying, they lost Kawhi. The Pascal Siakam, Pascal Siakam has to be the leader of this team. Kyle Lowry's going to be inconsistent as he always been in the playoffs. They really made like a big push onto this, but it wasn't enough to finish the series. And then with the Celtics on the other side, we got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just going off almost every single game. And then with obviously the consistencies of Kemba Walker have been really attributed to it. But the main factor is that their shooting and also the way the star players have performed really settled this series for the Celtics.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I think the Celtics were the better team basically the entire series. It's just that I think games 3 and 4 really hurt them, especially game 3 when Anadolu hit that three. You can tell it really affected them in game 4 because they didn't come out with the same energy that you saw the first three in games 1 and 2. So I think it's just like the Celtics. They're a young team, and like I think they're like how they play is basically based off their energy right at the start of the game. And I was like, we're gonna talk about the Heat and the Celtics. Is that the Celtics? The key for them to be successful, especially in this playoffs, throughout the playoffs, it's worked with them. Is that they need to get off to really good starts because again, they're a young team. Like they have they need a confidence booster right away. But if they get off to a good start, that's really good because then they're feeling confident. They'll be able to knock down shots. And if they're doing well offensively, then they'll be really energetic and more motivated and locking down more the defensive end. I think that's what happened in the first couple of games in the series is that they got out to really big leads over the Raptors. And even in game 2, like when game 2, the Raptors made that huge comeback, the Celtics were still able to lock down the defensive end. But I think, credit to the Raptors as well. I think, people give them a lot of criticism for not having a Kawhi, but I think I still said the Raptors are going to be one of the best teams in the East for this season, especially, with KD being out for the Nets and stuff, that the East was going to be wide open this year. I mean, the East pretty much was wide open this year, in my opinion. But obviously, the Celtics, it came down to them having the better ISO half-court players in Tatum, Brown, and Kemba Walker. And obviously at the Raptors, unless Siakam is able to develop into that guy that they want him to be, or they hope for him to be, because they signed to a max contract extension. The Raptors, they have to go out and get that, and find that guy, whether it's in free agency or through a trade.
Yeah, and for sure. And the funny thing is with these conference finals, there is one the Eastern Conference doesn't have a 1 seed. They don't have a 1 seed that's going to be in the finals this year, which is kind of crazy to me to say this at least, because you've seen a lot of the 1 and 2 seeds always be in the finals. Now it's the 3 versus the 5 seed, which is rare to see. As you can see, it's almost like I can recollect back just a little bit just from my personal history with Iona College. This when they won the MAC championship in 2019, they were I believe the 6th seed at that time, and the first 3 seeds, if I'm not mistaken, the first 3 to 4 seeds got knocked out in like the first and second rounds, and we were the 6th seed and still were able to win the championship. So that'll be the same thing here for the Eastern Conference Finals, which is what we're going to talk about right now with the Miami Heat and the Celtics. So first 2 games, it seemed it was very competitive, very, very competitive. And obviously you saw with, I believe in game 2 or I believe game 1 or something like that, where Tyler Hero was going absolutely mental. Like, especially towards the end of the game, he hit consecutive threes to try to help Miami secure the victory, and they did. And then the Celtics did come back in game 3 to not be able to go down on 3-0. So what I've seen with Miami, and I think they did this with the Bucks as well, is that with the on the half-court set, when a star player like Jimmy Butler has the ball, they were literally actually no, excuse me. When the Celtics have the ball, the Miami Heat would double team their star player. So let's say Kemba Walker has the ball or Jason Tatum has the ball. They would immediately double team him. They would immediately try to double team him in the half-court set. I'm wondering if that actually, and that's been working so far. I just wonder if if the Celtics make any adjustments to that kind of defensive prowess that Miami has been putting all series.
Well, I mean, that's actually a good point that you bring up. I think for Miami though, like it's something that they can do sometimes, but they can't do all the time. And what I mean by that is, you bring up the point that they double team, the star player of the Celtics, which will probably be Tatum or Kemba Walker. The thing is, you can do that sometimes, especially if the Celtics don't really have a good shooting lineup out there. So let's say because one thing they've been doing throughout this entire series, especially in games 2 and 3, is that they've been playing their bigs more. So Cantor, I know Cantor's got a lot of playing time. If it's Tatum, Walker, Cantor, and maybe let's say Brad Wanamaker and Jaylen Brown, right? Like you know that the only deadly shooter out there for the Celtics is Kemba Walker, because Jaylen Brown, he's an okay shooter, but you can leave him open. He's not gonna knock down a wide open shot 10 out of 10 times. And Brad Wanamaker can knock down the open shot. Obviously, okay, you're gonna stay on Brad Wanamaker. But like I said, Jaylen Brown, you can leave him open. And obviously with Enes Kanter, you can pack the paint, you can stay back with him as well. But the reason why they can't do this all the time is because, again, if that's the case, the Celtics can easily counter it with a big lineup. And you've seen it, especially in Game 3, which is big. That was a big reason why the Celtics won Game 3, is because they went big, and Kanter was just eating them alive in the paint. And also the Celtics were also being extremely aggressive defensively, and being aggressive defensively, but then offensively, Tatum and Brown were doing an excellent job of just attacking Miami's defense, because Miami, they like to play small, especially I guess with Bam, with Bam out there, they're still a pretty small lineup, because Bam's only
6'9", 6'10", something.
Yeah,
like
he's 6'9", 6'10". So then just kind of with Cantor, who's 7 foot, or even Robert Williams. I know Robert Williams hasn't really played a lot in the series. I don't know why. I think they should play more. I like Robert Williams, but Robert Williams, he's 6'11", and then again, so you have Cantor who's 7 foot. So the Celtics can just counter for a big lineup. So that's what makes this series so interesting. It's little adjustments like that, and then basically it's up to who can just execute more, down the stretch. But I think for the start of the game, I think it's more important, because, like I said, for the Celtics, they're a young team. It's important for them to go to good starts in order to win the games.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I want to specifically mention Game 2, because they were up at halftime. They outscored them in both the first and second quarter, but then completely botched it in the third quarter. The third quarter was absolutely massive, and Miami outscored them by 20, 37-17. And towards the end of the game, one notable thing that we actually talked about in our stream, in my stream last week, when I was streaming on 2K, was Goran Dragic. Goran Dragic went completely mental in that fourth quarter, knocking down shot after shot against the taller defender in Daniel Tice when they had to switch. And that matchup was completely deadly, because he was knocking down every single mid-range shot that he took in that fourth quarter. And John mentioned it as well. He has probably been underrated for this Miami offense. And now with the fact that they won Game 2 with the clutch moments of Goran Dragic, they were able to take Game 2.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you bring up a really good point there. Again, that's what I'm saying. That's what makes this series really interesting, because if you think about it, these teams are very evenly matched. You have Miami, with their guards, with Dragic. I said Dragic, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated players in the entire NBA. That's just my opinion. That's a hot take, then whatever. But you also have the young guys like Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson been stepping up. Duncan Robinson was really big for the Heat in Game 1. I think in Game 1, that's when he hit the 6 threes. And then Tyler Hero, he had I think he was their leading rebounder in Game 2. He was doing that, and then he also hit some big shots, and he was doing a good job of playmaking as well. There's a great all-around game for him in Game 2. Speaking of Tyler Hero, it's been really interesting, because he's basically taken over Kendrick Nunn's spot in the rotation.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Let me sorry to cut you off, but he played 40 minutes in Game 1 after that overtime win. and nearly got a triple double with nine assists, 12 points, and 11 rebounds. I mean, to say that he's first of all a shooting guard getting rebounds like that is utterly insane, to be honest with
you. Yeah, no, and again, like I was gonna say, like, you know, with the young guys, I think part of the reason, a major part of the reason why they're playing so well in these big playoff games, because they have the right veteran leadership. Again, you have Dragic. We also have Jimmy Butler. You know, Jimmy Butler's used to playing in big playoff games like this. You have Jay Crowder. You know, he went to the conference finals a couple of times with the Celtics. And then you also have Kelly Olynyk. You know, Olynyk, he's with the Celtics. So and then you also have, you know, the coaching. You know, you have Eric Spoelstra. Eric Spoelstra's, you know, he's coached LeBron James, for God's sake. So, like, he's won a couple of championships. Like, you know, when you have all this veteran leadership on your team, you know, pushing the young guys and, you know, teaching them to, you know, keep their poise in these big moments, you know, you see it in the results. But, you know, and then obviously transitioning to the Celtics. Again, the Celtics, they can go big, you know, with Enes Kanter and Rob Williams in the middle. Oh, and also Gordon Hayward came back from him as well. Hayward, he played, I forgot how many minutes. I think he played around 40 minutes in Game 3, but Hayward was big. He hit his first 5 shots, I believe, in the game. So that's going to be a big boost for them. So like I said, it's a very evenly matched series. You know, it's going to be fun to see how this ends. I hope it goes 7 games, personally.
Yeah, for me, for same here too. Even though they're gonna be tired for the finals, but speaking of that, Gordon Hayward played 31 minutes and picked up 6 points, 4 assists, and 5 rebounds, 3 steals, and a block. So it was honestly, especially coming from that injury in the first round of the playoffs. Honestly, I would say it's a decent game for him. But yeah, he didn't put out the points, but like for him to be in the presence there and have that veteran leadership on the floor is much more important to say, especially with the prowess of Gordon Hayward also. So, you know, hopefully, I mean, I would like to see the series go in 7 as well. It's almost like it's basically going back to 2012 or 2013 when Miami was facing Boston, back when LeBron was still there, and the big three with Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen at the time. So it seems like bringing back those days, but with a bunch of new different players on this roster for this 2019-2020 season. So, you know, I think for me, I would like to see this go again. I would like to see this series go a 7 games. So let's go on to the other series that has been a big eye opener, especially for Game 3 in the Lakers versus the Denver Nuggets. So yeah, they took the first 2 games. The Lakers took the first 2 games, and a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's gonna be a complete sweep." But you literally see Charles Barkley on TNT having the broom right out on a freaking TNT after Game 1 and say it was gonna be a sweep. But no, Game 3, Jokic absolutely just went completely mental. Have you seen the fadeaway shot that he made over Anthony Davis on the shot clock was running down? That's how you know what he's capable of. If you don't see that, then I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, no, you know, obviously I was on vacation, so I missed the first 2 games, but I did watch Game 3 last night, so I was able to obviously finally catch a game in the series. But from what I've seen, I think I like what the Lakers did. Like, they kind of went big to match the Nuggets' big lineup. Like, I know that they put Dwight Howard on Jokic. The only problem with that is that Howard is very foul prone, as you saw in last night's game. I believe he picked up 4 fouls like in the first 3 quarters. So, you know, he was in foul trouble. So, well, again, like, you know, that's going back to the whole, like, you know, Jokic, he's really good. He knows how to use his body. You know, Jokic is really good at drawing fouls as well. But in terms of just the Nuggets, you know, they've done a good job of shooting the ball as well. I know that Grant had a big game last night. He was hitting the shots. You know, that's the thing about the Nuggets too, is that the Nuggets, like, they really one thing they've been struggling with throughout the playoffs, is one person we have to give them, is that they really lack a third option on a consistent basis. Is that sometimes it's Jeremy Grant, sometimes it's Michael Porter, sometimes it may be I don't know, I guess like Monte Morris or
Yeah.
Gary
So last
Harris.
night, actually, it was Monte Morris who picked up 14 points off the bench and 2 of 4 from 3. And you're right, Jamie Grant was the second leading scorer on the team, aside from Jokic picking up 22. Jamal Murray had 28, but he picked up 26 and drew a lot of fouls and went climbing up 22 and 10 of 12 from the free throw line. So, he picked up a lot. He drew up a lot of fouls and was really stellar for them. But I do agree with that because the other veteran that's on the team is Paul Millsap, and he has not been stepping up at all. They definitely need him to step up for this team if they want to. If they want to, even first of all, even just take another game against the Lakers, and eventually try to take the series against the Lakers also.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the key for the Nuggets in this series is that I'm not really worried about. I can't really worry about the defense because, to be honest, like both these teams are going to score a lot of points on each other because they have the star power to do so. But that's the thing too is that the Lakers, that LeBron and AD are both going to score between 25 and probably like 30 points on every game in this series. The Lakers also, even though they don't really have as much, of options outside, much offensive options or star power offensive options outside of LeBron and AD, they have the shooting to back it up. And that's been the key for the Lakers throughout this playoff run is that when they're shooting the ball and they're hitting their threes, they're basically impossible to stop. And that's why for the Nuggets, they really need a consistent third option, whether it's Monte Morris, Michael Porter, Jeremy Grant, on a more consistent basis. So, even though people are saying they should be up 2-1 right now, the reality is they're down 2-1, and they better win tomorrow because I think, unlike the Clippers and the Jazz, I think if they go down 3-1, I think they'll lose.
Yeah, and here's the thing with that. Like, if you see how the Lakers played in terms of their offensive sets, they didn't do well. They shot pretty decent from the field, which is 51% in Game 3, but shot terribly, absolutely terribly from downtown. They're not the best. Obviously, not the best 3-point shooting team in the league. They rely that much on their paint presence with Anthony Davis, and their field goal percentage. They went 6 of 26 from 3. That's not good at all. But also the fact that what Denver did pretty well is forcing a lot of turnovers. However, they didn't have a lot of turnovers on their end as well. I think they had like 9 turnovers in one quarter, or one half, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And they forced LeBron James and they forced Anthony Davis to make a lot of mistakes. Especially with LeBron James, he had 6 turnovers. Even though he had 11 assists, he had 6 turnovers in this game. So forcing the Lakers to a lot of turnovers can actually be a big benefactor for if the Denver Nuggets want to take another game in Game 4 and hopefully take the series. So that's going to be the main factor. And the other thing is if Jokic can stay effective, and how the way Jamal Murray has been playing basically out of his skin. I mean, did you see the 3 that he made towards the end of the game? He's just on a shooting stroke. You know what I mean?
Dude, Jamal Murray is just like, I don't know what this man did like before the playoffs started, but I want whatever he's having.
The man's on the mission, bro. The man is just on the mission. Here's the one thing I want to ask, and this is just about Jamal Murray specifically. If next season comes around and all that kind of stuff, and he plays like this, is he an all-star caliber player? If not already,
oh, yeah,
because the reason why I asked this is because, and I also did this for a project of mine for one of my classes for grad school at Iona. And I had to do a project where you could do any game of the series in the NBA, and I did this one I did the one with Jamal Murray when he scored around 40 to 50 points, in that first round, of the playoffs, and he was going absolutely mental. Do you think? And I asked my partner that I had with us. Do you think he's an all-star caliber player? Because there's been a lot of controversies that he's been inconsistent, especially when playoff time comes. But now, it doesn't even seem like it.
I know, it's just the thing is, the inconsistent argument is valid because, like, you see how he's scoring like crazy. The crazy numbers he's been putting up offensively, like I'm not like just throughout the playoffs, just as in general, and like the type of shots he's been making as well. Like he's been making some really tough shots in the bubble so far. And like the thing is, I don't see him making those type of shots on a more consistent basis throughout the course of a full NBA season. So that's why I'm like, and also when you think about it, like it's the West, like the West is so loaded with guards. Like you got James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard. I don't know. Like I'm like just to name a few. It's just I don't know. Like maybe you can make it like as a reserve for next season, but like I think it's just I don't know. I love Jamal Murray. It's just like the West is way too loaded. If it was the East is a different story, but it's just the West is just too loaded. That's just in my opinion.
Yeah, and that is a good point to bring up. The West is very loaded in terms of how many good guards there are, and you also have next season coming up with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson also.
Exactly.
Yeah, we forget about that, which we're actually going to talk about for the future, because I want to talk about the future notable teams for this coming season. And you've actually talked about this in one of your videos already with Doc Rivers and the Los Angeles Clippers. Where is the future for them? Because obviously we already mentioned that they blew this 3-1 lead against the Nuggets. Playoff P, or now we saw a way off P, didn't perform. Kawhi Leonard was completely inconsistent in that game 7, and both of them combined for 24 points in that entire game. That's terrible, obviously, coming from superstar play from both these players. So you're wondering what kind of moves will they make? Will they consider? Well, obviously, I think they're gonna have Kawhi and PG for next season. So they'll still have this. I'm assuming they'll have this team for next season. I don't think they're gonna make too many moves, or maybe very, very minimal. It's just a matter of will their bench in Montrezl Harrell step up? Will Lou Williams be consistent? That didn't happen in this playoffs. So you're wondering for the future for this team.
Yeah, no, it's just like, to be honest with you, they're kind of like in a similar situation with the Rockets, where like the only way for them to get better is to make trades. But the only problem is that like they have so much money committed like to next season. Like I think they basically have no choice but to run it back, and like they're basically gonna run it back with the same team. And I'm saying that because unlike the Rockets, the Clippers are committed to Doc Rivers, which in my opinion I think they should. Like, let's pump the brakes on the whole Doc Rivers is overrated train thing. I think that was just NBA Twitter overreacting to the Clippers blowing the 3-1 lead. But I think they should run it back, in my opinion, anyway, because it's obvious that the main issue was their lack of chemistry, and they have an entire offseason to get their chemistry back on track, and then they'll have a full. Well, I wouldn't say an entire season, because obviously we all know the season is gonna be shortened this year. There's no way. We already talked about this. There's no way it's gonna be 82 games from next season. So they'll have a full off season, and then they'll have an entire regular season to get their chemistry going, which I think they will. And I think that this is Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. They're still one of the deadliest duos in the entire NBA. They're gonna take all the criticism to heart, and they're gonna come back way more motivated and ready to take over the NBA for next season. But in terms of like what they can do, I think just run it back and just make sure you have your chemistry right. Because one thing I was really worrying as well is that apparently the Clippers weren't practicing as often as they should, because they feel like that they can just turn on just because they're Clippers. That's really disturbing to hear, in my opinion. So I really hope that they get their chemistry issues together.
Yeah, absolutely. And you wonder if they can actually make that championship run and still have and relieve this curse that they've been having ever since they had Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan. So, it's gonna be interesting to see now that they have this new offensive scheme and they have this new star power. you wonder how far they can go for next season. Now, the other one I want to talk about, and I did mention it before with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, is the Golden State Warriors. Will they be back in playoff contention for this year for next season? Because you'll have full health in Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, but then you also have Andrew Wiggins, who I believe from what I'm hearing is the Warriors are trying to trade, but I'm not sure. I really want to see how Andrew Wiggins develops with this team, because now that you have the star power in Steph Curry and the duo of the Splash Brothers, you wonder how much of an impact he can actually bring to the table, and also the fact that you have the defensive prowess and the defensive presence of Draymond Green, and they have the second round pick in this year's draft, which is coming up next month. You wonder if they're going to pick up James Wiseman, or if they were going to pick up some drafts had LaMelo Ball, and then they see if they can trade up for, and see if they can trade up for a superstar or something like that. No, my thing is that they, as I was saying before, pick up James Wiseman in the draft and develop him. You've done that already with Steph Curry. You've done that with Klay Thompson, with Draymond Green. And look what it came up to. And it came up with look what it resulted. It resulted in a championship. And that happened for 1 year. And then you signed Kevin, and then it happened again when you faced LeBron James and the Cavs. And then you signed Kevin Durant and got another championship. You went down this season, and obviously you went down this season with a bunch of injuries that you had, and with Klay Thompson being with the ACL tear in the finals. So, with that being said, will this team be in playoff contention, or let alone win another championship?
I mean, I wouldn't say they're going to win a championship for next season, but they're definitely going to be in the playoff picture for next year, because one of the things about the Warriors that makes them such a favorable destination is that they're really good at developing their homegrown talent, which is why, like you said, I think if they do their thing and they draft James Wiseman, I think James Wiseman, they'll develop him into a really good starting center. I wouldn't say one of the best centers in the NBA. That really depends on him. But because Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are the stars of this team. So I think if you draft James Wiseman and you develop him to a starting caliber center in today's NBA, because that's been the issue with the Warriors for the past 5 to 6 years, is that they haven't really had a good center. So I think if James Wiseman can be, I wouldn't say a franchise guy, but again, that starting caliber guy that they've been lacking for the past few years, I think that makes this Warriors team much more dangerous, because they're going to come back extremely motivated for next season, especially with Klay. Like, Klay's been wanting to play for God knows how long. This is Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson is a hooper. He loves to hoop. So he's gonna be averaging he's gonna be taking 10 threes a game for next season. So I think the Warriors definitely in the playoff picture for next year. And I think in terms of Andrew Wiggins, I don't think they should try and trade Andrew Wiggins. I think, first of all, no one's gonna want him. But second of all, I think they can make Andrew Wiggins work on this team. Because if you think about it, teams are going to hone in on Curry and Thompson. So it's nice to have that third option buffer and Andrew Wiggins who can not only shoot the ball, but he can create his own shot for himself as well. So that's a nice core we got right there. You have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, and potentially James Wiseman. That's a nice core to not only build around, but that's 4 players you have to watch out for on throughout the entirety of the game against the Warriors.
For sure, and then hopefully, and that's the one. I mean, I'll take the bias route just for a little bit and saying, I would love to. I miss, obviously some people, including myself, miss Steph Curry being on the floor, and you see him on the amount of shots that he can make, and he can create his own shot as well, being one of the best shooters in the NBA, along with his Splash brother as well. So you'll like to see how well they can do for next season. But one more team we're going to talk about there before we close it off is the Milwaukee Bucks. As we mentioned before, they didn't make the stride in the playoffs. Yeah, they're 2-time MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo has been really making the strides, but it's not enough. It wasn't enough. He doesn't know how to stretch the floor as much yet. Doesn't really take a lot of threes. Even though the NBA now is very much a 3-point generated kind of generated kind of league now, and the fact that there's kind of easy ways, not really, I wouldn't say easy, but there's some ways that you can stop Giannis, and that's basically on the drive, but it's kind of hard too because you don't know where he's gonna go. But there is ways to stop him, and Miami was that team to stop him. So you're wondering for the future for this team. So you wonder if Giannis is gonna stay for them for future generation. Will he leave, or how will this Bucks adjust for next season?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't think he's gonna leave. I think Giannis is gonna stay. Because Giannis had like a Damian Lillard type mentality where he's gonna ride or die with the team that drafted him. So I'm not worried about Giannis leaving, and also because not only that, but also the Bucks, they're an organization that I think they're willing to build around him. They already have a good core with him and Chris Middleton. I think it's gonna be a great duo, especially if Chris Middleton keeps developing his game and getting better. Him and Giannis for this next decade, I think they're gonna grow. They're gonna develop to be the best duo in the entire NBA for this past decade, in my opinion. But I think in terms of what they need to do, I made a list here as well. First thing they need to do is trade Eric Bledsoe. Like, get him out of here. Like, Bledsoe is just, I don't know what's up with him, but he's been terrible for the Bucks, especially in the playoffs.
So let me stop you there. So what kind of guard do they need instead of having Eric Bledsoe on this team? If they are willing to trade or get rid of Eric Bledsoe, what kind of point guard does this team need?
They need a point guard that can not only shoot but create his own shot. Because the issue with the Bucks is that Giannis and Middleton are the only guys who can not only shoot, but Giannis he's not the best shooter. But obviously Giannis, he can knock down the occasional three or mid-range shot. But they're the only two real shot creators on this team. So I need a point guard that can create his own shot. And Eric Bledsoe is just not that guy. He's way too inconsistent for them. Like, even I have some stats here. Yeah. So that's for people to know. Bledsoe's scoring average has dropped in each of his 3 years with the Bucks. So when he got traded, I think he got traded, from the Suns to the Bucks back in 2017. With the Bucks, he averaged 17.8 points per game, which is really good, right? Mm-hmm. Then last year, it dropped down to 15.9 points per game. Then this year, he averaged 14.9 points per game. And the playoffs, it got even worse. In the playoffs, he shot a playoff career worst 39% from the field, and he committed a playoff career high 2.6 turnovers per game. Not only that, but you look at his contract, he's making $16 million next year, $18 million the year after that, and $19 million the year after that. Oh, and let me remind you, he's 30 years old. He turns 31 years old in December, which means he's going to be on the wrong side of 30 when the next season starts. So you're going to be paying $18 to $19 million for a guy for a point guard in his mid-30s whose scoring averages have dipped every year and has shown that he underperforms in the playoffs. Like, no. That's why I actually like George Hill for this team. I think George Hill should have started over Eric Bledsoe, because not only George Hill was he a great spot shooter for them, but he can also occasionally create his own shot when he needed to.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna mention George Hill. It should just probably be that starting point guard for the team. Yeah, he's not as good as he used to be back in the Pacers, but still, he can still create his own shot. He's still a veteran on the team, even though he's a little older. He can still make it happen. He can still make it happen. I do believe and I do agree that Bledsoe has been very inconsistent, and also the fact that a lot of people have been saying. A lot of people, especially on YouTube and also on some of the analysts, been saying that Chris Middleton has been the most overpaid on the team, and I'm like, no, what? That's Eric. That's Eric Bledsoe for sure. That's Eric Bledsoe because he hasn't really been performing. Chris Middleton has been putting up the numbers, not Bledsoe.
Okay, I think the reason. to be fair, Middleton, like if you look at Middleton's contract, he's making because they signed him to a max deal, so he's making $30+ million. And I think people's mindset is, why am I paying $30+ million to a guy who averages around like 18 to 21 points per game, and he's a solid shooter. He's not but he's not a superstar type player. Well, the thing is, the Bucks are banking on the fact that he's going to keep developing as the years go on, to a point where I'm not saying he's going to be putting up Giannis type numbers, but you hope that Middleton develops to a guy that averages around 25 to 27 points per game on efficient shooting splits. That's a guy that's going to be worth the money in the long run. But still, people were saying that Middleton is the most overpaid player on the team. No, he's not. Like, it's the NBA. Like, honestly, like, you have to overpay for guys now. It's definitely Eric Bledsoe, like you said.
Yeah, obviously, and the fact that he has 2 All-Star selections. He's shot over 40. He's shot over around 37% from 3 in his past 2 seasons. And this season alone, he shot 41% from 3. So I don't understand it. He bumped his average up to 20.9 points per game this season as well. So like, I don't get it. I mean, someone has to back me up in the comments. Let me know and let us know if what you think on who's actually the most, most overpaid player on the Bucks as well. But it has to be Eric Bledsoe. Like, he was the one who's not performing for the Bucks this season. So, is there any team that you would like to talk about before we send it off? It's talking about the future for some of these teams who are not in the bubble currently right now.
Yeah, I definitely want to bring up the Nets and the Suns, because obviously, we know that the Suns, they went undefeated in the bubble, and they literally finished a Karis LeVert missed jumper away from making the playoffs. So I think, the Suns, they have a lot of questions in terms of what they need to do for next season. If they can do they basically run it back with the same team they have for next season and see if the momentum carries in, or do they, possibly, make some trades, sign some free agents, or see how they do in the draft? That's going to be really interesting to see. And the Nets, the Nets are, we have KD and Kyrie coming back along with Steve Nash. The Nets, they also have some questions that they need to answer as well, because they have a lot of good young guys like Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, who else do they want from? Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, I can't pronounce his name. They had some really good young guys for them. So, the Nets, what's their ceiling for next year when they come back with KD and Kyrie, in terms of the East?
I was hearing, and I don't know, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if I saw this on Bleach, I don't know if it was on Bleacher Report or from an ESPN article, saying that Steve Nash might run KD at the center position.
Ooh.
And I don't know how to feel about that. Because you have because the problem is you have DeAndre Jordan, unless he's willing to trade DeAndre Jordan, but they just got him for this season. So I don't know. That seems like you're running a 5 out with KD in the center position. I don't like that.
Dude, they need to get DeAndre Jordan off the team. I don't know. I don't know why DeAndre Jordan is on the team. He's literally on the team because he's their friend. DeAndre Jordan is not 2012, 2013 DeAndre Jordan. Like, I don't know why people can't just realize that. DeAndre Jordan should be Tyson Chandler and just not play. Like, he literally should not play. Like, you have Jarrett Allen. Jarrett Allen is the franchise center on this team, not DeAndre Jordan. But to go to your point, I think what they can do is they can run because think about it. Teams need to have small ball lineups in order to succeed in today's NBA. So I think running KD at the center, and kind of will be like the Nets kind of small ball. I think that would work. But I think their typical starting lineup needs to have Jarrett Allen at the 5 and KD at the 4.
Okay. I mean, technically KD can play power forward. He has played it before in his career, if I'm not mistaken. But just not like not like for a full season, but like at some points he actually played power forward. At least that's what I'm. At least I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure though.
You know, KD's what, he's 6'10". I mean, he could play power forward. But the only issue is with playing KD at the 5 is that he's not big enough to guard centers in the NBA. But so like you give it and you take it. So I think like with KD, I still say running with the 5 when you have Jarrett Allen on the bench. But I think their starting lineup needs to have Allen at the 5 and KD at the 4, and then we'll see. And then obviously you have Kyrie at point guard, and then you see what happens with the other 2 spots in the lineup.
Absolutely, and then wanting to see if they can make that playoff push for next season. I mean, they did it last season, but it wasn't enough because they didn't have anyone. They didn't have Kyrie. Kyrie decided, obviously, as everyone knows, Kyrie opted out for going into the bubble. So, with the New York teams in mind, and hopefully here in New York we can all come back to everything back to normal as well, with the virus still in effect. Hopefully everyone will stay safe as well. So that'll do it for us today here in the Sergeant's Lab. Make sure to check us out on social medias as well. Make sure to check me out on Instagram, SGT MattGeorge22 on Instagram. And make sure to tune in to my Twitch streams as well. I'll be streaming every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. Monday will be my music streams from probably 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, from 2 to around 4 or 5 Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday. And I will change my Friday one now. I'm gonna probably do it around, I think, for like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock starting time. We'll see how that one goes, because obviously I want to go back into Jackbox as well. So hopefully you guys can tune into the stream. Make sure to tune into the stream, twitch.tv/The Sergeant's Lab, and make sure to check me out on Twitter. Same thing, twitter.com/The Sergeant's Lab. John, where can everyone reach you, as well as mentioning your Twitch stream as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So people can follow me obviously on Twitter at JML5798. That's at JML5798. And yeah, like I said, I'm starting to focus more on YouTube. So obviously follow my YouTube as well. It's my same as my Twitch show at DATAMIKE. I'm not really sure, when I'm gonna get back into streaming, but obviously, I've been more motivated to make the YouTube. So make sure to subscribe to me on YouTube, where I do reaction content. I do reactions to the games, like immediately after the game. I also talk about other basketball stuff as well. Like recently, I uploaded a video on Doc Rivers on whether he really deserves the blame for blowing the 3-1 and 3-2 series lead that he's done throughout his coaching career. I think it's a really interesting video. I put a lot of time into it, so make sure you guys go check that out instead of believing trolls on Twitter.
That's hilarious, man. I mean, hey, and make sure to check out all the links for our social medias and channels in the description. So, John, thank you for being with me in the Sergeant's Lab once again here.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm glad. Another day, another episode. The NBA playoffs continue to move along. We're gonna have the finals, pretty soon here in the next couple of weeks. So obviously, make sure to tune into our podcast episodes for that.
Yeah, episode 10, the NBA finals. So hopefully you guys are tuned into that one, and we'll see you again next time. Have a good day, everyone. Take care.